For 2 years, their marriage had existed like a perfectly staged photograph, flawless on the outside, yet strangely untouched at its core. Elena remembered the night she became Mrs. Adrian Vale, stepping into a world of wealth she had never imagined, marrying a man whose name carried power in every room it was spoken. Adrian Vale was not just a millionaire, he was a man of discipline, control, and an almost intimidating silence. Their wedding had been grand, whispered about in elite circles for months, yet what no one knew was the truth that followed: he had never touched her, not once. Not on the wedding night, not on any night after. At first, Elena had thought it was respect, perhaps even kindness. She had come from a life of struggle, and Adrian had saved her from it in a way that felt almost unreal. But as days turned into months, and months into years, that distance became a quiet storm inside her heart. They lived in the same mansion, shared the same dining table, attended events side by side, yet an invisible wall stood between them, unbreakable and cold. Adrian, on the other hand, was a mystery even to himself at times. He watched her from a distance, the way she moved through the house with grace, the way her laughter softened even the coldest corners of his world. He noticed everything, yet he restrained himself completely. There was a reason for it, one buried deep in his past, a promise he had made to himself after witnessing how love, when rushed and reckless, could destroy everything. He believed that control was strength, that patience was protection. But what he didn't expect was how Elena's presence would slowly chip away at that belief, how her quiet sadness would begin to haunt him more than any mistake he feared making. He had given her everything money could buy, yet he couldn't ignore the one thing she truly needed, the feeling of being wanted, of being chosen not just as a wife in name, but in heart and soul. Elena tried to convince herself she was content. She filled her days with charity work, learning new skills, and trying to adapt to the high society life that once felt so distant. But nights were the hardest. Lying alone in a room that echoed with silence, she would wonder if she had done something wrong, if she wasn't enough for him. She never dared to ask. Adrian's presence commanded respect, and perhaps even fear, but it was never cruelty, just distance. And somehow, that hurt even more. She didn't want his money, his mansion, or his name. She wanted him. Just him. Then came the night everything changed. It started like any other evening, a formal dinner, polite conversation, and the usual distance maintained with precision. But something was different in Adrian's eyes that night. There was a tension, a storm brewing behind his calm exterior. Elena noticed it but said nothing. She had learned to read him in silence. After dinner, as she turned to leave, his voice stopped her, low, firm, and unfamiliar in its intensity. "Stay." It was a single word, but it carried weight, the kind that made her heart race. She turned slowly, meeting his gaze, and for the first time in 2 years, she saw something raw there, something unguarded. He walked toward her, each step deliberate, as if he were crossing a line he had drawn himself long ago. The air between them changed, thick with unspoken emotions. Elena felt it too, the shift, the breaking of something that had held them apart for far too long. "Do you hate me?" he asked suddenly, his voice quieter now, almost vulnerable. The question caught her off guard. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I never could." "Then why do you look at me like I've already lost you?" Her eyes filled with emotion she had buried for so long. "Because you were never really mine to begin with." Those words hit him harder than anything ever had. In that moment, Adrian realized the truth he had been avoiding. His control had cost him something far more valuable than he ever intended. He had kept his distance to protect, but all he had done was create a void. And now, standing in front of her, he knew he couldn't let that continue. Slowly, almost hesitantly, he reached out, his hand lifting to her face. It was the first time he had ever touched her like this, and the moment his fingers brushed against her skin, everything changed. Elena froze, not out of fear, but out of disbelief. The warmth of his touch, the intensity in his eyes, it was overwhelming in the most unexpected way. "I was afraid," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of losing control, of hurting you, of turning this into something I couldn't protect." "And what about me?" she asked softly. "Did you ever think about what it felt like to be kept at a distance by the men I chose?" Her words lingered in the air, heavy with truth. Adrian closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering the courage he had denied himself for 2 years. When he opened them again, there was no hesitation left. "This ends tonight," he said, not as a command, but as a promise. He pulled her closer, gently but firmly, as if afraid she might slip away if he didn't. This time, Elena didn't hesitate. She leaned into him, her heart racing, her emotions finally breaking free. It wasn't about passion alone, it was about connection, about finally closing the distance that had defined their entire marriage. For the first time, they weren't just husband and wife by name. They were two people choosing each other, fully and completely. And as the night unfolded, it wasn't just the beginning of something physical, it was the beginning of something real. If this story touched your heart and you want to see what happens next in their journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more powerful, emotional stories that keep you hooked till the very end.